Welcome to season 3 of Malevolent Autopsy. I'm your host, Queen. I use she, her pronouns, and I am so excited to be here with you all. Now, let me warn you, the show contains major spoilers for everything Malevolent as of the day this episode is published, so if you're not caught up, I'm not liable. Before we get started tonight, I'd like to ask my gorgeous co-host, what part of Arthur's body are you betting on getting injured this week?
I think his fragile, long piano player fingers are going to get stubbed on that big, heavy coffin when he opens it.
Ooh, I love that. I mean, I don't love that answer, but I do love like the body part you chose. What is your name and what are your pronouns, my friend?
Hi there, I am Luna Maria. My pronouns are she, they, interchangeable, and I'm very delighted to be here. Thank you, Queen.
Thank you for joining us. Volume Control could not make it tonight, but Luna I have wanted her to be trapped on autopsy, forced to talk to me for a very long time. So thank you for stepping in. I appreciate it.
I have wanted to be on Autopsy for a long time because I love dissecting Malevolent, and you guys are so fun to listen to.
No.
Rest in peace, recover quickly, volume control, or congratulations, whichever it is. Thanks for letting me be here.
You're welcome. It is great to have you. And Vol has written our episode summary, but it just doesn't feel right if I read it. So would you like to summarize the episode for me?
I would be honored to. Thank you. All right, so this is a summary of episode or chapter 267, and written by the wonderful Vol Control is: after deciding not to try and make friends with the bagman, Arthur and John continued through the mist, agreeing that they should wait until things come to them to interact. They make light conversation about John's previous visits to the dark world, though John can't remember much, as if his memories are rewritten each time. While discussing who or what might be in the dark world, Arthur has the bright idea that maybe there are other versions of him. Well, the clever little detective is detecting, John's response is so innocent and so normal. Luckily for John, it's then they come across what appears to be a funeral. Strange figures in black dresses with pins sticking out of the back of their heads seem to be mourning before a forest of concrete columns and a coffin. Though they intend to pass by without interrupting and go around the coffin, when they get close, John sees a name upon it, his name, John Doe. Now we have to ask ourselves, do we open the coffin? Or do we leave it be?
Such a spooky summary. Thank you for reading it for us.
Yeah, thank you, Vol, for writing it.
Before we get into our carrots and sticks, I just want to say that I'm also really glad that I have you on and that we're on opposite sides of the vote, because as much as I love agreeing with you, it's so much more fun to be against you.
I know. It's so fun to argue with me in full chat. Really good reason to join the Patreon if you haven't already.
Yes, absolutely. I also want to say that we got an overwhelming amount of submissions for not to open the
Ooh.
coffin, and we'll get into the poll of this later, but that makes it extra interesting for me to have somebody on here who is for opening the coffin, spoiler alert, because we don't have a lot of representation of that side of the vote, despite the incredible majority being for opening it, which I just thought was really funny.
That is really fun. I've noticed that the Discord seems very much in favor of the Patreon section of not opening the coffin, but the patron voters are not shifting that much, despite or maybe just the really vocal part in the poll chat is very against opening. I don't know, but I've noticed that this week too.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see how like the participation aspect manifests and like what the split is between people who are super participatory and active and communicative versus those who just are in the shadows,
Hmm.
and how that manifests in like the actual result of the poll. I played some mind games
Yeah, you
we'll talk
did.
about later
You
as
sure
well.
do.
What was your stick for this episode, Luna Maria?
Oh, my stick for this episode was when this wonderful, exciting moment about alternative authors was brought up. And the stupid little funeral people interrupted the boys from their wonderful little heart to heart when John was getting flustered. And I was like, no, I don't care. Go away, go away. Like, we're onto something. And so there's so many of those juicy moments that come up in Malevolent. I've noticed, like, even since season one, where Harlan does like this motif of starting to reveal something really like lovely and then boom, cut off. So those always stab me right through the heart. What was your stick, Queen?
My stick? Okay, well, my stick was you played me from the start. I
Uh,
didn't. I did. Well, you had me hook, line, and sinker. Like
uh,
I was saying in chat when this was playing before we started Autopsy, I almost wish this was a divorce. I almost wish they were fighting and it was like full of anger and bile because it hurts so much more to hear how, like, I don't know, sad or defeated they sounded. It just made me so sad. And I missed it when they used to yell at each other and hate each other. Actually, I take it back. I miss divorces. Harlan, it's so much worse this way.
well, I feel you. That was originally my stick too when I heard that line, and Arthur was like, "Oh, you had me hook line." Like he just sounded so defeated and so miserable about it, and my heart dropped, and I was like, is Arthur like losing faith in him?" But then the more I thought about it, I did come up with an optimistic lens to view that line through, which I can go into later if you want.
Luna's like twisting the arm behind the back, trying to get it to work. What? No, tell me. How did you
Okay,
make that work?
okay. So listen. So to me, I that conversation originally was very sad to me, and so the way, oh, the chat's making funny. They're all saying listen because that's what I do in poll chat. I'll say like listen. So the way I started to see that a little more positively was this is the first. So I listened to season one a lot, and I've heard it several times because I'm a little bit of a freak when it comes to Malevolent, where I'm scared to listen to it out of order. So I every time I re-listen, I have to start from season one, and if I lose my place, I start again.
Jesus
I know.
Christ.
I'm a little bit like whenever I love something a lot, I'm kind of afraid to listen to things out of order. It feels very sacred, like I have to have a ritual with it. That said, I've heard season one at least 5 times.
Yeah.
And so when they talk about this over and over, John just gaslights the ever loving. I can curse on this podcast, right?
Yes, you
I
can
can
curse on
okay.
this
I couldn't
podcast.
remember. John gaslights the ever loving fuck out of Arthur every single time their meeting comes up, where it's like, oh yes, you killed Parker. Oh yes, you wanted to kill Eddie. I mean, this is your fault. I'm just doing what you wanted to do, Arthur. And so it's all manipulation that even carries through to season two, and even a little bit in season three and season four when Arthur kind of brings up murders and John's like gently reminding him. And this was such an interesting conversation because for the first time ever, John was taking full accountability, where he's like, yes, I was playing you, I was lying to you, and I'm really sorry, and I feel really, really bad. And to me, that was a really big positive moment because it's like they're not hiding anything anymore. And then Arthur answers just as honestly, because Arthur's often very
Yeah.
defensive, he's very caged up, and he's like, you had me. And I was like, whoa. And I think that's very rare for Arthur to be like, I don't know, you really pulled me in. You absolutely have me. And I think I don't know, I think that almost speaks to the way Arthur feels about him now, where he just feels like as much as their relationship is kind of fucked up, he's just so connected to and endeared to John that he's kind of like, yeah, we've had this really fucked up start, but here we are, and I would hate if you were gone.
That's so fascinating. I want to put you under a microscope. I love you so much. Man, this is
Thank
why I
you.
was like, I need Luna on this podcast ASAP because like I have to say I get it because I see the depth of their relationship in that exchange regardless of whether it's positive or negative, and for me the depth and the continued growth of that relationship is always a positive,
Hmm.
but to me the tone of it sounded so much like the line never should have opened that book.
Yeah.
And it hurt really bad to the point where I was like, I wonder if Arthur's going to start questioning this relationship more and more to John's
Ooh.
face
Ooh.
and like having this conversation out loud with him, because I think Arthur has done a lot more internal processing of how fucked up this relationship is than we have been let into because we don't hear Arthur's thoughts. And I have to wonder if we're going to start getting into Arthur kind of pulling open the wound and making John look at it, because we do get a lot of their emotional conversations, but they don't really talk about their relationship to each other very much. It's a lot about like their personal growth or how they've helped each other grow and like the journey of, you know, morality and humanity and identity, but they don't talk about like, we met and you tricked me and you said this thing that hurt. Like, we don't really get that as much as they go through arguments and they talk about the world around them. And so I'm very curious to see if this is going to be more and more of a painful Arthur looking back on how screwed up things have been and actually vocalizing it instead of keeping it in and like thinking about it. Because I think he's done a lot of thinking about it that we just don't know about.
I agree with you completely because I was re-listening to 266, which is the chapter right before this, to warm up for before I joined you here. And Arthur really does sound quite forlorn at the start of this episode. And I was kind of wondering, like, oh, I wonder what's upset. Is it Frederick? Like, is that what shook him? Is it the whole situation now that they're alone and they're not running? Because they just had a decent moment when they were sitting down and John was trying to talk to him for the first time in No Man's Land. But I noticed Arthur's tone when he brings it back up, like, okay, John, like, are you going to tell me? And I think he's a little put off that John's like, we got to wait. We got to wait till I can talk to you. I think he's a little pissed off by
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I do, as much as that's painful, I would love them to get to the place where they very directly talk about their feelings, because one of the things I say to my friend is Arthur is so stereotypically British in the sense of keep calm, carry on with his emotions quite often,
Yeah.
where he's really
Yeah.
quick to be like, we don't need to address this. We're just going to kind of shove it down. And I don't think they've had a moment where they really dove into what they mean to one another since their big fight at the beginning of season 5, where Arthur's like, we're supposed to be friends. How could you do that to me? Because through season 5, they have a lot of these really beautiful, warm, tender moments together. And Arthur keeps pushing down his feelings about it. Every time John tries to be nice and is like, I love you or I care about you, Arthur's just like, oh, okay, moving on. And I think Arthur is at a place where he's kind of a little overwhelmed and a little bit like, Harlan said acceptance was a part of the season. I think Arthur is coming to deal with the kind of fucked up fact, which he touched on in season 3, where he's like, I'm mad. I can't believe I killed myself for a voice in my head, where he didn't want to believe it. And now he's kind of like, oh no, I love this guy. And he's a little bit kind of upset about it. He's not too happy about it.
I love that. Well, and I think too that I think something that I feel really strongly about is that this podcast, we've all heard the queer baiting allegations. I won't shy away from that. I think everyone, if you know Malevolent, it's been accused of queer baiting. First of all, that's not what that word means. Nobody's using it right.
No.
But second of all, we all know that this is a story about platonic love, and it's not like it's wrong to see it any other way, but like that is the canonical interpretation of the story. And for me, it was really important to mention how that goes along with Harlan being a guy, like a cis guy, and specifically the fact that men are just not encouraged to be vocal about how they feel, especially when it comes to love and platonic love. It's a very traditionally, society has asked them to push that down and be really quiet about it. And I think that a lot of the appeal for me in hearing Arthur's journey, especially when it comes to the theme of acceptance in this season, is that acceptance is not, it's maybe the final stage of grief, and it may be the kind of the ending of one's story, but it is not by any means like a pleasant or calm or even linear experience. And I think this is the beginning of us seeing Arthur's attempt at accepting things, where right now it sounds like he's accepting it almost in the wrong way. Like he's laying down and giving up rather than accepting as an embracing. And those are two very different interpretations of acceptance. And I think Arthur is really used to accepting John's like declarations of affection, for example. And even the way he said it in season 5, and I love you too. Yes, he said I love you, but it was so important to me that he said, because not only is that very sweet, and like we can all feel the warm fuzzies about like, I don't even need to tell you, you already know this. But also I think it was really cool to hear him say in front of that I love you, because it was almost like a buffer. Like,
It
I
is,
need to put
yes.
these
It's a
words
buffer to me.
before I say this big
It's a
thing.
buffer to me. It is a buffer to me. And it's interesting for you and I to talk because I love the themes of, because I agree. I think there's so much about masculinity that goes into the show. And I think Arthur's masculinity can be analyzed so much. And I think there's a lot of different ways you can read that and that you can kind of go into like how he views himself, how he views his relationship with other men. And one of the theories I really love, if anyone listens to another really cool Malevolent podcast by Megan Lloyd and her sister Emily, which is my sister made me view it, they've talked about Arthur's masculinity a little bit too. And one of the ways that Megan viewed it, where she's like, I could see Arthur as in a lens of being closeted, possibly as like a queer person, and he buries a lot of his feelings over and over, and part of it. I like that reading a lot. And, that could not be the correct reading. It could very much still be platonic too. But I like that because to me, it really doubles down on why I feel like Arthur's so afraid to be affectionate towards, you know, anyone who he reads as a male and his friend. He talks about like
Yeah.
how he's so angry at Christianity, so angry at religion. He's so put off by it. We hear a lot about his pain in season 5 too, with like the boys brigade and like Christian masculinity is what he
Mm-hmm.
calls it. And so I think he's just like, he's so wound up in all this pain and all this kind of reluctance. And I think it's going to burst for him soon because,
Yeah.
the line that's been living rent free in my mind since the end of season 5 is Kane telling the two of them, "Oh, the heart you share." That drives me up the fucking wall. I'm just like, hello? What do we mean? What do
I
we mean
mean,
by that? I mean, I guess they're in a
it's
body.
probably,
Literal.
look, it's probably just literal. John doesn't have a body, Arthur does. They literally share an anatomical heart. I'm pretty sure that was all that was supposed to mean.
It's just that the heart they used to share, it's pulp now. Thank you, Fish.
It's pulp
Thank
now.
you for bringing that up. But there's so many lenses you can read it in, and one of the interesting lenses I see through that is that I think that kind of stuff freaks Arthur out. I think he's very much like, oh my God, I don't want to care about anyone this much, whether it's platonically, romantically. However, Arthur feels, I think he's just like, I don't want to. He's very
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
like Da Capo even showed us his closest friend Parker, he was keeping at arm's length. He's just
Oh my
so
God.
closed
Oh,
down.
the
I
amount
know.
oh, the amount of like the way I could feel both of Arthur's arms fully outstretched,
Yeah.
pushing away like
Yeah.
everybody and everything. Like the fact that he is actively arguing against Parker the entire
Mm-hmm.
time for his own, like the place that he holds, and not in just his life, but in like everybody else's life all around him, and
Mm-hmm.
in the locations that he's at, he doesn't feel like he belongs there. Like it's just a completely isolated feeling, and he's crafted it for himself even when we meet him. And so to hear that glimpse of who Arthur used to be, I feel like was the last piece that so many people needed to get a picture of just how bad Arthur was. Because
Yeah.
I think it has we really took for granted how different he is now.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's funny because I think a lot of times the show and John and even Arthur makes this assumption of, oh, his life was so great before this whole thing started. And obviously, he wasn't dealing with demons chasing him down all the time, but
Right.
he was not the happiest or most connected person either. He was clearly living in this overwhelming well of like depression and repression and isolation. And
Mm-hmm.
it took someone getting stuck inside him for him to form a really close relationship. He was so convinced that he was like, I can't do this anymore.
Well, this is something that we talked about like really early on, is like, how do you push someone away when you can't get away from them?
Yeah. Yeah, which is why I think they get interrupted so much and why this episode made me
Yeah.
crazy because I was like, go away, funeral, not now. Like, have your funeral somewhere else. Like, they're having a moment.
And I think that's so fascinating because if you have heard Harlan talk on Spooky Stream in
Mm-hmm.
previous like seasons of Malevolent, he has said before, no, nobody wants to hear them just talk about their feelings for an hour. And I'm like, I don't think you get who listens to your podcast because we would.
I would. I think sometimes he's being a little bit. I've noticed sometimes on Spooky Stream he almost kind of like leads us in circles. Like there was a time
Yeah.
where Joe and he brought up like a literal thing that happened in Da Capo before it actually dropped, and we as the patrons knew it. And there was this moment where I think most of us listening were like holding our breath, like, oh my goodness, are they going to trick everyone?
Yeah.
And Harlan backpedaled it, being like, oh, I don't think Arthur and Parker were ever that close. Nah, that wouldn't happen. No. And so he was just like making this up. Yeah. And he was like, because it was about like Arthur going to Parker's family for dinner. And he just completely made this up. And so the whole audience is like, oh, I guess Arthur and Parker weren't that good of friends. Just for the
Yeah.
combo to drop in a week, and it's like that literally happened. So I do think sometimes he says things almost like in a hee hee ha ha way
Yeah. Yeah, that's
because he's
true.
kind of trying to mislead people. And as someone who does that in full chat myself, I do understand that mentality.
Well, speaking of, really quick, by the way, everybody, Vol Control isn't in the chat. It's just that Body Internet made it so that Vol couldn't actually reliably be on speaker so that,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to have him blipping in and out. So, but he did say something that I really wanted to highlight, which is about and I love you too. Vol says, and it's like Arthur is giving a reason for why he doesn't have to say it out loud as often because John knows,
Mm.
right? And you know what? First of all, I have to say, I think it is so funny that I shoved the only guy off the podcast to talk about guy things. But move, I'll do this. It's fine. But I want to say, like, I have noticed that with particularly, and this is something that I've heard from other men in my life,
Mm-hmm.
I have this tendency to like express my love very loudly and very constantly to the people that I love because
Mm-hmm.
that's important to me, but it's also not even something I think about anymore. And sometimes I have to straight up pull out of my guy friends, okay, I need you to be more explicit about the fact that you care about me because sometimes it's really hard to remember that without saying it. Like I'm the kind of person who
Yeah.
sometimes needs to hear it. And guys are like, "Oh, well, of course I think you're amazing and I think you're really good at this thing." And they have the compliments ready to go. They have the
Mm-hmm.
list of reasons. They just don't think about putting it out there cuz they think you already know. Why do I need to tell you again? But that affirmation and saying that out loud can be really, I mean, first of all, I think everyone finds that kind of a thing pretty validating, even if it's hard to accept. I think
Mm-hmm.
everybody in general would agree. It's a nice thing to hear when people say that they love you or that they think you're really good at something. And I think it's funny how people so close, like deep, intimate, even soulmates, like platonic,
Yeah.
romantic, whatever, can go so long without saying
Uh,
those kinds of things to each other because it's like, it's a given.
yeah.
I'm close to you and you know it.
Uh-huh.
But I think it's fascinating that even Arthur is like, I don't need to tell you that I love you, despite the fact that he really does. Like
He
he
does.
maybe
He
Arthur most of
does.
all really needs to
Oh,
tell John
he
that he loves
so
him.
badly needs to. What's really interesting about Arthur is he does not like to compliment. He does not like to speak positively. He speaks somewhat positively about John in season one when he's still kind of a naive and a little bit scared of him. And, he
Mhm.
reflects on that later on. But the time Arthur is the nicest and speaks the most to John, I just figured out in my last listen through, is when he's suffering from extreme blood loss at the end of season three. And literally, they have to canonically say it to explain why Arthur's talking like this. Arthur's like, "Oh, I'm a little woozy from the blood loss," and John's like, "Sit down." And Arthur's like, "You're so awesome. You're undefeated, John. I can't
Oh,
believe you
that's
did." Yeah,
right.
he's just so
That's
affectionate.
right.
And that's when he's like, "We should go out to dinner. We should go dance." I'm like, "Oh my god, that's the only
Good
time
lord.
that Arthur has ever been that fond and sweet
So,
and just
okay.
like twirling his hair as
So
he's
if what I've learned is what
uh-huh,
Malevolent's teaching me, and maybe
uh-huh.
the only thing Malevolent's teaching me, is that if you have a friend, especially if they're like male aligned, and you're having a trouble getting them to open up, either
Uh-huh.
get them super drunk
Yeah.
or make sure they're undergoing extreme blood loss.
Just
Like,
stab them.
make sure they're basically
Yeah,
dry.
yeah, exactly. Just, bleed them out a little bit, which is why, that used to be something doctors did where they would bleed out their patients. And that was something they did to,
Yeah,
cure their
yeah.
humors and make them bleed better. I have a history degree, guys. This is so real. Anyway, yeah, so sometimes that's a great way to get through your emotions.
I think that's a great segue into asking you what your carrot was.
Holy shit. Wow, we really went at it. Okay. My carrot was absolutely the amount that John revealed about his time in the dark world because
Mm-hmm.
literally, I think it might have been a month ago or a couple of weeks ago. I brought that up we have a section in the Patreon for those of you who aren't in it. And again, I encourage you to join. It's really cool, where we talk very openly about everything in the show, all spoilers out. I said, like, how did John get in the dark world the first time? Was that ever explained? Did I miss that? And folks were saying to me, oh, because he was in the book and this. And I was like, so was the book a portal? And I'm very much not Lovecraft versed. Like, this was my first
Yeah.
foray into Lovecraft ever. I'm very familiar with drama because that's my other degree, but I was like, I don't know. I could have completely missed something. And folks were saying, oh, it's just the book. It's just the book. And so when John brought this up, I was like, I knew it.
Luna out here flaunting her 2 degrees.
They're both bachelors. They're both bachelors. I don't have. They're not. Which is not. Listen, the field I'm in, everybody's supposed to have advanced degrees. I don't. So, but the fact that he said that, I was like, I knew it. I knew there was something weird about this. But it's funny. I was talking to my friend earlier today. The cool thing about Malevolent is it's so big and it's so cosmic that there's so many things that could be happening where you could see it as like, maybe that's left out, maybe it'll get explained later, or maybe that
Mm-hmm.
is just like part of the mystery and it's just a big cosmic thing we don't understand. So I was so excited. I was like, oh my god, what does this mean? What does this mean?
Yeah. I love that. I love that Harlan is really, really good at
Yes,
breadcrumbs.
yes,
He is really good at planting seeds. He's such a gardener that way.
he is a
He has
gardener.
he has put things down and picked them back up with magician level moves that I could
Hmm.
never have predicted, which is like really exciting. And it's also really frustrating because when you try to talk about things that we don't know yet, people are like, well, that's an inconsistency. And I'm like, the show's not over. Like you have to
Exactly.
you who if you were around for Malevolent in seasons 1, 2, or 3, could
Hmm.
you have ever predicted that you'd get to hear Parker, like to be in the
Yeah,
apartment right before the book
yeah.
was opened? Probably not. I'm gonna pretty much guarantee you did not call that. So I mean, it's very hard because things don't always make sense when you're looking at them on the microscopic level that we have to go on right now. But we have a whole season still to go, and already these chapters
Yeah.
are like 15 minutes long.
God, they're rich. They're so oh my, I'm thriving with every chapter like so far because they're a little bit longer than usual for those of you who are on the Patreon, and they're just very dense and so full of really good information. And that makes sense, if
Yeah.
we're getting close to the end, they need to be. But I agree. I think it's very funny you bring that up, Queen, because I think about that as how we as Patreons, we kind of get this very microscopic look on the story sometimes. And so one chapter can kind of overshadow how the whole story feels. And it's kind of like we have to pull
Mm-hmm.
back over and over. And then when the whole episode comes out in context, it can have a wholly different emotive feeling than how we felt hearing just the chapters. But you want to know something really funny when it comes to not predicting things in Malevolent? I've done some digging on the Discord before when I was prepping part of a 5-year gift we made for the celebration of Malevolent in the Patreon. And I found a very, very old conversation between Harlan and a Patreon. And, one of them was saying, like, do you think John and Arthur will ever be friends? And Harlan's like, I don't know. John just sees Arthur as a vessel and a ride. I don't think John's ever going to see Arthur as more than a body. I was like, oh,
Oh my
interesting.
god.
Interesting.
Well, I have to say, like, when we hear him in the commentaries, which, by the way, everyone needs to listen to the commentaries.
Hmm.
I know that so many people haven't yet, and it's just such a shame because it's almost like listening to Malevolent all over again with bonus content. It is just so good. Anyway,
Hmm.
he talks about how, like, really, truly, Malevolent, when it first started, was not this story. It was
Hmm.
just as simple as a dude who has a demon. He even says he was a demon in his
Yeah.
head.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no like plot of friendship or like huge alternate universe craziness going on. There was none of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
from the outset, he's working with a totally different set of like he's working with a totally different set of paints. Like he didn't start with this in mind. And so to have to, first of all, as a writer, to have to go back and make all that work when you didn't start out planning this from the very beginning is hard. But also, he's done it so well so far, and he's grabbed these pieces that I don't think anybody could have predicted he would grab to bring back. And he's working in such a different way than he was years and
Mm-hmm.
years ago when he first started this, that I think it really is a testament to like
Mm-hmm.
how far we've come, to quote the title of a very emotional
Aww.
song.
Aww.
Yeah. Mizra says, between commentaries, my sister made me view it, and Autopsy, the later episodes of Malevolent will eventually have over 7 hours of bonus content
Wow.
each. That's nuts.
Delightful.
I can't believe that somebody in the future would listen to this and consider it bonus content for Malevolent, but I guess that's kind of technically a perspective you could have.
Listen, if I wasn't part of the Patreon and I'd found Malevolent after it finished, I would be zooming through these. I would, because that's what I'm so serious because Malevolent to me is one of the most beautifully written dramas I've ever heard, ever read.
Yeah.
I just am so stunned by it. Like, I can't, like, for all the jokes, I can't stress what I think an overwhelmingly brilliant and strong writer Harlan is, and like how beautifully thematic and intricately woven the story is, and just how impressive it is as a devised piece. Incredible. So I would listen, Autopsy, I would be like, yeah, tell me the dirt every week. Tell me like, let me take me on the emotional journey, because again, I can't imagine, like you said, being a fan in, honestly, like even like, when I was listening the first time, and I did my first listen to Malevolent, like, which is crazy, less than a year ago, and this is how deep I've gotten. Less than a year. Is like when I heard the beginning of season 5, the fight at the windmill, I was like, oh, it's over. It's over. The boys it's done. It's never gonna be okay again. Life is over. And it's so funny when you hear these in very small pieces, the story feels so different. And so I think Autopsy is a real gift like that. We're kind of preserving a little time capsule of like how the story made us feel in its intended format, like each week. So Queen, I wouldn't undersell yourself. You're capturing something special.
Oh, Luna, I need to find an opportunity to get you back for this. So, anyway, we're gonna go quick because we have 6 voice notes
Yes,
to
we
get
do.
through
Mm-hmm.
on top of talking about the poll. But I'm just gonna briefly say my carrot was his band, his orchestra. The fact that Arthur was like catching on to the idea that maybe Kane pulled these Arthurs out
Uh-huh.
from the dark world, and then
Uh-huh.
John's response to that's actually fully my carrot. We may not even need to wait until mid-season to review those theories we were talking about a couple
Mm-hmm.
autopsies ago,
Mm-hmm.
because I, first of all, am going to double down and say I totally think that it has something to do now with with John fucking around with other Arthurs, or like other people they know,
Mm-hmm.
or even just like making a decision that Kane tells him would have affected other timelines or other Arthurs or something. I think that is super part of it. I think this was the
Yeah.
first really big confirmation for me. I'm willing to double down on that theory as of right now.
That's a really good carrot, Queen. And I think the fact that John's like, I need to explain, I need to go in depth, I think other timelines and timey-wimey stuff could be a big part of it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we are going to go over the poll.
Yes.
Right now, we have Open the Coffin versus Leave It Be, with Open the Coffin at 66% of the vote and Leave It Be at 34% of the vote, with 381 votes total. Now, I will say we've been breaking over 500 votes in the last
Yeah.
few chapters, so this is not at all over, but it is Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that Harlan likes to do his writing on Sunday morning, and this is all hypothetical. In the Patreon rules, it technically says that like the poll closes on Monday morning and all that stuff. But this is my hypothesis is if he looks at this poll and it hasn't majorly changed by tomorrow night, I don't think that he's going to be prepared to write the other outcome winning. I'm going to guess that he's already pretty much written the episode, in fact, because this kind of a lead for this long has rarely flipped. I'm not saying it's never has. I'm just saying that, like, it's very likely this is going to be written early, and with the lead that it has, it looks like that. Vol has lovingly provided me the actual voter counts. That means 251 patrons are voting for Open the Coffin, and 130 are voting for Leave It Be. So, all of that being said, I'm technically on Open the Coffin, but my heart is on Leave It Be. There's a lot. I have nuances to explain, but Luna, what side of the vote are you on for posterity?
I am very strongly on Open the Coffin, full-heartedly, no technically.
Okay, all right. Well, you're gonna have the opportunity to speak a lot about your side of the vote as we go through these voice messages because there are so many that I feel like they're gonna provoke arguments for both sides. So I'd like to listen to them, and then like we're gonna try and respond to them as quickly as we can,
Absolutely,
but without like losing anything, because I do know we're gonna run over tonight. Thank you guys in the live chat for staying if you were able, but if not, no worries.
Sorry for yapping, guys. We got excited.
We just have a lot of feelings.
We do have a lot of feelings.
Before I play voice messages, I'll just say I was in poll chat and I was seeing that it was in the 70s to the 20s, I think it was. I thought that ratio was unacceptable because all I was seeing in poll chat was people like, open the coffin, I don't care if it's a trap, all I care about is John, and I hate Arthur, and stuff like that. And so I was like, this will not stand. I need somebody to be on the Leave It Be side so that we have a reason to debate. And it's just such a bunch of people like walking around shaking each other's hands. Oh, I agree with you. And things are super cool. So I started arguing for Leave It Be really, really hard because, like, why bother having a poll if you're not going to argue about it? So but then like later on, I was getting kind of tired and I was like, okay, I'm just going to tell them once and I'm not going to announce it and make a big deal out of it. I'm just going to tell them once that I'm actually voting to open it because that's what I want to do for a bunch of reasons. And I'm just going to tell them once and I'm not going to say anything again. And then people found out that that's what I did and people were not happy. And by people, I mean mainly Milk. Mainly Milk felt betrayed, still feels betrayed. Don't think Milk will ever survive. No. I've done this before in another vote, so like this is not unusual for me. But like,
you love chaos.
I do. Well, it's not chaos. I just like it when people argue.
Potato.
It's different. It's different. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to start out with somebody who is for it's the only Open the Coffin solution that we got.
Wow.
Hey y'all, Slate here, they, them, she, her, and I'm calling in on behalf of Opening the Coffin. I've seen a lot of interesting arguments for keeping it closed, but none of the arguments for keeping it closed outweigh my desire to know what the fuck is in that coffin. I've said this in poll chat, but my internal voting compass almost always boils down to, I want to fucking know. I will always want to push the big red button. I am cognizant that it very well may be a trap, maybe by the doll maker, but honestly, that just does not move me. Number one, the idea that it's a trap is, at the end of the day, speculation, because we truly have no clue what the fuck is up with this thing. Is it possible? Hell yeah, but we don't know. Number two, is it related to the doll maker? Maybe. Pincushion warners indicate that it's a strong possibility, but that's great. I want to meet the doll maker. I want to see what the fuck is up with that guy, and I'm not interested in kicking the can down the road. It's endgame, and we don't have time to futz around avoiding plot hooks. And number three, I truly do not believe that we would get heartfelt John lore 2 chapters back to back. This is the Dark World. Arthur and John are always going to be in danger. If this is a trap, I genuinely don't believe that leaving it be will convince whoever set this trap to just let us go on our merry way. I don't see it as an inherently safer choice. I have no idea what is in that coffin, but that is precisely why opening it is so tantalizing. At the end of the day, this is the question I want answered. If John has more relevant lore, he'll drop it later down the line. The coffin is now. It doesn't matter what's in it to me. It could be entirely empty and I'd be happy. The contents of the coffin are less important to me than the act of opening it. The knowledge is worth the risk to me.
Thank you so much for your submission, Slate. I really do appreciate it, especially as one of the only person who submitted on this side of the vote, despite being the majority. So thank you very much.
I appreciate that, Slate. Slate and I have been talking all week in the Discord because, again, the majority of the Discord wants to leave it alone. There's like a whole flip campaign going on right now that's very passionate. And Slate and I will like occasionally pop in and be like, no, we want to open it. And so it's very
God.
interesting, kind of, because we're like one of the two. A lot of people did flip. A lot of people flipped, but we're kind of the two very much dying on this hill. So, yeah, no, I'm glad that you submitted, Slate. I want to give time for those submissions because I feel like I can talk about my perspective maybe when they share.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You'll hear a ton of arguments, so
I'm
you'll be able to combat those.
I'm
I
sure.
will say to Slate and this submission in particular, I think it's interesting. I think one of my favorite things about polls that I've come to really appreciate is when we pick and choose what we're willing to say is just speculation. Because some people would call this is a trap a speculation. Other people would call this is a trap like narrative intention, or all of the signs, the flashing neon signs are pointing to this being a trap. But some people would just go ahead and call it speculation. So I mean, there's that. There's that. I also definitely heard that you loved John Law and didn't care about Arthur. So anyway, let's hear about the next submission from Hydrus, who
Wow.
did not introduce themselves. So I will just say this is from Hydrus, they pronouns.
Hi everybody. I don't have anything super mind-blowing or breaking to say about this vote, but there are a couple things I want to point out as potential points of interest for us moving forward. The first one is that when we wake up in the tower initially, there are 3 graves there, right? And John notes that the one that we wake up in has a tombstone on it with a name that's eroded, and he mentions that this name is not, as far as he can tell, Arthur Lester. He doesn't say, however, whether or not the name could potentially have said John Doe on it. I feel like there might be some merit to the concept that every grave in this world acts as an entry point for new Dark World arrivals, because he mentions something about how you've always been there. It's possible that every grave, is that sort of entrance point, and if we open it, we might be able to, meet someone that's brand new to the Dark World. And that, of course, doesn't super matter to this particular vote, because, anything could happen at this stage. But there's also the matter of roles, which I think is very important here. The rat catcher has a role. He catches rats. The crab lanterns were jailers, essentially. We know of the doll maker, who, as far as we know, makes dolls. We have the farmer that farmed, and now we have the mourners that mourn. There's a very strong sense of just everyone having a place and having a job to do. And as some people are correctly worried, interfering with that might cause some issues. But I'm more interested in seeing if interfering with them could potentially release them from these roles. If we interrupt the funeral, if we show them that there's nothing in this casket, if they will realize that their job essentially cannot continue, or if they will potentially make something to put in there so their mourning can continue. Just something to think about.
Thank you so much, Hydrus. I appreciate your submission, and I also want to note that I actually had you written down insanely. Don't remember. I don't know how I just didn't make the connection between your voice submission and the conversations we've actively had together in poll chat. I actually had you down for leaving the coffin be because the last thing you said about if they're going to make something to put in the coffin made me feel like you meant, oh, they're going to fucking kill them again and put them in the coffin.
Oh no.
But I forgot. Hydrus is really into that. Hydrus wants everything to go to shit.
Oh, wow. Okay, we've got a chaos batter over here. That is such a cool theory, the idea that graves are the entrance to the dark world. I think that is super
Yeah.
fucking cool. All the more reason I want to open it. Because to me, I see, Queen, I love that you mentioned that like traps is kind of like a speculation thing. And,
Hmm.
we don't really know completely. And to me, if there's
Hmm.
any chance, because John just said I sort of quote unquote died, maybe it was a fragment. I'm like, if there's any chance this is somehow related to him and his entrance or leaving of the dark world, and maybe like I don't know. What I've noticed is that with them saying the dark world is organic in the way that like it builds up around people, it's not punishing people. The way the soldiers' grief and death seem to manifest no man's land. Part of me thinks maybe
Yeah.
John dredging up these feelings manifested whatever the fuck's going on with this coffin. So that's part of the reason I would love to open it was 'cause some of the things that Hydrus just said. So really interesting.
I find that fascinating. I never actually thought about the dark world being responsive in that way. I
Mm-hmm.
think that would be cool. I
Yeah.
definitely don't want to eliminate it as a possibility, but I feel like the dark world almost it feels dead in a way where like it wouldn't be capable of shifting to accommodate.
Mm-hmm.
Rather, it's kind of giving you the carcasses of what's left over.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like it is a completely different plane of existence. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. That's a very interesting thing to consider. And then like something else we haven't really touched on is in the dark world, is it how many people are ending up there and how quickly is
Yeah.
that happening? And
Mm-hmm.
like are we talking where this is every nanosecond a new timeline gets put in there? Like how does that work? And then just I mean obviously time doesn't mean very much there, and it
Mm-hmm.
works differently. So I don't know, lots of unanswered questions I'm very excited about.
Me too. It's very cool because this is, for those who don't know, this is purely Harlan Guthrie's creation. So all holds barred, like anything could happen here. It's very cool.
I love it. Okay, shall we get into the next one? This one is gonna be juicy because it comes
Ooh.
from Fish.
Oh.
I'm voting to leave the coffin behind, and this is why you should too. If you're somebody who cares about John lore and believes that we will get some sort of key information from this coffin, ask yourself why something relating to John would be in this specific area that we have been told is inhabited by the dollmaker. John states that he's never heard of them. I would find it very strange we'd get something so closely tied to him here. Also consider that these creatures were likely dolls made by the dollmaker. For example, they are described as being shaped like clay to be smooth but imperfect, and have pincushion heads with oversized needles stuck into them. They are also capable of quick movement, as John described the figures they see running past them, before they encountered this funeral scene. And they are also in possession of a strange throat sac that John likens to a bullfrog, which is an animal known for its loud calls and sounds. I'm certain that this is all the work of the dollmaker, and that disturbing this scene, we would only get their attention. With these attributes, I think that they could very easily become dangerous if disturbed as well, either by calling the dollmaker's attention or by using their needles to try and hunt down and kill Arthur. Also, I can't see any reason why John and Arthur should go against their word so quickly after they had just agreed with each other that they should leave things alone if they can help it, as it's more safe. We've already had an example of that working with the bone grinder we avoided last chapter. I mean, come on. We've just had John hint at some very damning implications about his time in the Dark World, and right after that, we suddenly come across a big box with his name on it, practically begging us to open it to learn more. I do not trust like that, and you shouldn't either. John Doe is a placeholder name, and the off chance that this was intentionally created for John for some reason by the dollmaker means that this is almost certainly a trap that we should not walk into. Finally, for those who were around for the bug vote, leaving it be was the correct choice then, even though everybody thought we shouldn't. I was right then. Listen to me. Thank you. Fish, he, him. I forgot.
Thank you, Fish. I love you. You're one of my favorite people on this planet.
Which I have so much respect for you because you are one of the most like rational, like just scientific method people I know. Where like I feel like so often my energy and your energy in pull chat conflict because I'm like all like, listen, the energy, the drama, the dramatic arc, the feelings of the characters, the voice, the vocal recording, and Fish is like, these are the fucking facts, Luna. I'm just
I love that Luna, I think Luna's like most frequently used emoji must be the feral emoji in Invictus or something, because like Luna is constantly hitting enter. She can't ever write her sentences in just one line.
Yeah.
And it's a constant stream of screaming. And so if you're not keeping up with only her messages in the chat, you will lose what the fuck she is on about.
Only
It's
when
like
I
one word per line. And then Fish is like, hold on, I have a headache, but I need to go find these screen caps, and then I'm going to post them, and then I'm going to reply to that post with like 6 paragraphs that I've typed exclusively on my phone.
Yes.
And it's the funniest thing to see them both there at the same time.
It's very like a scientific reaction coming together. I do get very rational when I'm arguing for a poll I feel very strongly about, and I do feel, it's so funny, Fish. You're so the idea that it's a trap and it's bad for us. I respectfully disagree. I think that narratively, we're being built up that John is going to talk about his sister, like Slate mentioned. Like, why would we get so much John lore in a row? I think that, like, this is almost a gift for John. Like, hey, this is his little gift. Like, this is his present. It was just his birthday.
It's a fucked up Jack in the Box.
A fucked up Jack in the Box. Like, who are we to take his toys from him, Fish? And Fish is also convinced he's the dollmaker, too. And it was, yeah, Bull's right. It was just John's birthday. Gemini
I
season.
just think that part of it is that it feels too much like, okay, you were just talking about at the beginning of this chapter how Harlan gives us a little bit and then he takes it away with an interruption. And it feels like directly polar opposite to what he would do for him to interrupt the John like conversation to give us more John conversation. That doesn't make any sense. So I'm very skeptical that this is intended. Like, I don't think it's narratively, like, I don't think that it's gonna thread that way. It's almost too consistent now. Like, why would we just be talking about John and his time in the dark world and then, oh, look, this convenient thing that's labeled John? I don't know.
I do agree with that. That does not feel like his writing style. I think what tantalizes me is that, again, if there is this organic growth of the dark world that kind of brings out, from emotions and things like that, I think that could speak to the coffin. But I also think, like, even if it's not what they think it is, if it's not related to our specific John, I think that will still prompt an interesting reaction out of him, even if it's not him talking about his own feelings. So that's why I'm so invested in it and kind of seeing what's inside of it. I feel so strongly about that. Oh, fishes when they get chased by needleheads. I mean, fish, some of their best moments come when they're in peril. Remember when they fell off that roof, or fell down that hole, or fell down that
Remember
other
holes.
hole? Remember holes, fish? Remember falling down holes and hearing Invictus and how lovely that was? Remember when we killed a gug fish and we talked
I have
about
to say,
the
we did
Minotaur?
just talk about the fact that Arthur had to be suffering blood loss to get really emotional, and that
Oh
is
my
super Luna Maria's thing.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
what I'm learning here is that people who are really into Arthur being deeply emotional really want Arthur to die, like really bad. Like, maybe they would say that it's more important for Arthur to fucking die than for them to have a satisfying ending where they both live.
I do want them both. I have a lot of ending theories. I won't go into them, but I do want them to both live. I will say that for record. And I do actually love John and Arthur very equally. I want them both to be happy.
Do you? Because it sounded like you don't. Sounded like you don't. Anyway, let's go.
Oh my god! Yes, play
Let's
the
go
next
ahead and
message,
listen to the
Queen.
next.
You play the next message. Go right ahead. Go right ahead. It's fine.
Hi all. My name is Key, she, her pronouns. I've been meaning to send a voice message for a long while, and now's the time. When I first listened to the chapter, I wanted to open that coffin. However, after hearing some arguments in poll chat and thinking on it, I've changed my mind. I'm now voting to leave that cursed thing alone. I want to talk about one particular argument, or maybe just an interesting fact. John's full name, John Doe, is written on the coffin. Now, this is notable. This is only the second time in the entire podcast that John's full name is used. The first mention occurs in Season 2, Part 16, The Path, when John uses it for himself. However, in every other occurrence, John is referred to by first name only. For example, when introducing themselves to Noel, Arthur uses his full name, while John is introduced using only his first name. This also occurs at the start of Benevolent, which, is non-canon, but you get the idea. John is almost always referred to as John, even when Arthur is given his full name. So, why does this coffin in the middle of the dark world bear John's little-used full name? That's easy. It doesn't refer to our John. It's just the generic placeholder name, and we should move along.
Thank you, Key. I really appreciate your message because that is not a perspective that I had before hearing your message. And I really think that it's super cool that you went and double checked that during using the transcripts.
So I have some thoughts on that. Key, great message. But I've heard that argument a lot brought up specifically against me in the poll chat this past week, where folks have been saying, John Doe is just a placeholder name. John Doe is just, what people say when they can't identify a corpse. And I actually did get into a researched answer for this one, Queen, where it wasn't just vibes and feelings. And I looked
Thank
up
God.
listen, I can get historical when I need to because I love John and Arthur equally, for the record. And I was saying, John Doe was specifically created a lot of times with law enforcement for unidentified bodies. And when bureaucracies and different agencies can't identify somebody. And to me, I'm just like, why would the dark world need that? The dark world is more or less just, again, an outpouring of people's minds or suffering, whatever they created. I don't
Dark world government.
There's a dark world government, Queen? Tell me more about it.
Don't worry about it.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a feudal system with a king, but I guess they developed, some bureaucracy, democracy in John's absence. I mean, what else can we say? Next message.
Next message. Let's do it.
Hello all, this is Killerina or Jane. My pronouns are she, they, and this is my plea to not open the coffin. I feel that a good chunk of us are aware that this is a trap, however that's not actually a deterrent for many. The itch of curiosity, the possibility of John lore, and just the potential to fuck shit up is enough to have people voting to open the coffin. While I can't actually say anything to make anyone less curious about what is in the coffin, I can share that I fully believe the coffin to be empty and actually unrelated to us, and that I think there's more lore to be had if we leave it alone. There are three main reasons I think opening the coffin is a bad idea. The first is that I think this concrete forest plays a role in the dark world as a physical manifestation or hub of people's grief that draws them in. I think the dollmaker found it and is using that aspect of it as a trap. The second is that John himself said that we should avoid things in the dark world when we have the choice, and we have the choice here. Third is that the scenery around us right now and the environment of the dark world is really cool, and I would love to engage or travel through it in a way that we get to experience the scenery without being chased. I would much rather have the horrors of the very cool location we are in right now described to us than the horrors that are hounding us down. A secret fourth thing is that I just genuinely have a terrible gut feeling about opening the coffin, but weigh that as you wish.
Thank you for your submission, Killerina. I loved hearing your voice.
Yeah, that was really lovely. I don't think I've heard your voice before. I've heard folks say that one too, that this is so obviously a trap and that we're gonna miss out on the concrete jungle and everything like that. And to me, the thing that keeps coming up where I keep going back to opening the coffin is, again, I think because I have this theater background, I think a lot from the POV of the characters, and I think how unfair would that be to John that he's seeing what he is, because he called it my name, he thinks it's his name, and then Arthur's just like, fuck it, doesn't matter, we're gonna keep going. I just think that's such a dick move.
I love that, actually. That's actually my favorite thing now is thinking of Arthur's response and how he would tell John no. You know what? My fucking body, dude. You don't get to make this choice. We're not opening the fucking coffin. Bye.
My body, my rules. You just fucking told me how you gaslit me all of season 1. I'm
Yeah.
not in a good mood, John. Oh, you want to know about your history? Too bad. Me too, John. I wish I had my eyes.
Yeah. You know what? I talked about this in poll chat really seriously, or maybe it was Eel Pit somewhere, where I was like, how much shit has John taken from Arthur, and how do you get over that? How do you deal with John and how much he's taken from Arthur in so many ways compared to John, who's lived, quote unquote, countless lifetimes as a god? And the concept, the power imbalance there, and the reciprocity, I guess, how do you make it even? How do you make it equal? And we had a really good conversation about it's not equal or even, and
Yeah.
love isn't often equal or
Yeah.
even, and like it's not really about that. It was a great super nuanced conversation, which is why you should join the Patreon if you're listening and you're not already a patron. And if you are a patron, you should go look at Luna's beautiful responses, and tons of other people were responding in in a eel pit as well, when I was blabbing. But I think it's very interesting to consider how Arthur would respond if we did leave the coffin. Like, Arthur's response is actually not something I've given a lot of thought into. How would you think that he would say, like, let's open it? Like, would it, do you think it's going to be Arthur that says let's open it, or do you think it would be John, or like, what do you think, Luna?
Oh my goodness, I thought about this a little bit. I think honestly, I think Arthur wants to know about John as much as John kind of wants to know about John, because one of the things that again stands out to me from beautiful episode 52, when they're having this moment of where Cain reveals the bone citadel and everything like that, is Arthur goes, I forgive you. I can't imagine what the dark world's like and what you've been through. And it's kind of Arthur acknowledging, like, John knows so much about him at this point. He does not know as much about John. I think Arthur wants those answers, and that's almost where some of his frustration is coming with the conversation at the beginning of this episode and like in the beginning of this chapter. So I could see him being like, okay, let's take a look, kind of just willing to do that leap for him because he wants answers too. And I think he's also just feeling as, Harlan mentioned the season being a little bit about like a directionless survivalism and just relying on each other. I'm sure he's desperate to have like any other strings or standards that they can kind of hold on to more than just the bell. That's all they have at this point. So I could see Arthur being on board for it. I could see John just kind of I could see John actually being the one that's like, I don't want to open it. Like he's a little bit nervous. Someone said it
Mm-hmm.
could be like, I don't know if it would be this. This feels too good to be true that it could be like his literal secrets or like literal something that's a bomb of truth about him. That feels like too good to be true. But I could see him being hesitant to open it because John is so afraid to confront a lot of his past and a lot of what he's done. So I could see actually Arthur being the one to be like, well, let's see what's in here.
Yeah. I want to point out some comments from some patrons in the chat right now. Moss says, every single vote so far, except to follow the rat catcher's directions and maybe stay still, has meant avoiding interacting with this world. I want to interact, even if it breaks bad. Please let me push E to interact. And I think this is a really common thing that I've heard. And it's actually one of the things that does make me lean toward opening the coffin, because I have said that, like, as much as I do appreciate playing it safe and I do value and I'm opposite Slate. Like, if you ever need to know how I'm voting, look at Slate and how they're voting, and probably the opposite is true for me, because I personally am the kind of person who's like, I don't care what you dangle in front of me. There is nothing that you could put in front of me in the way that I interact with Malevolent in the votes to make me put Arthur's quote unquote safety in front of learning things. Like, I'm not willing to treat Arthur like a doll that I can throw around the world, like he doesn't matter, even though I know that he's going to probably be fine in the end. He's the main character, blah, blah, blah. That's all meta knowledge that I have. And so therefore, like, there is a perspective where you feel safer taking risks because you know you're secure as a person. Like, Arthur's going to be fine, or it'll be super cool to see him get hurt, or whatever. But when I vote very much of the perspective of, like, making this decision in the world. I would never just be like, yeah, I'm going to put myself on top of this grenade because I think it might teach me something. Like, I wouldn't say that, like, if I were in Arthur's shoes, so I wouldn't vote that way. And so that kind of, like, the concept of every vote so far has meant avoiding interacting in this world. That's totally true. Like, I think a lot of these votes have kept us playing safe. And I think that's smart because we're listening to what we've been told. But I have to wonder, I get this sinking feeling that it's gone too well so far. Like, I'm really worried that if I don't take some kind of bait, it'll get worse on, like, without my permission. So as much as it goes against the typical way that I vote, I think I'm so nervous that it's going the way I want it to go, if that makes sense.
It absolutely does, because again, the things I vote on are very based on, like, can I get in the shoes of John and Arthur and what would make sense to make them the happiest or safest in the situation? And I agree. Arthur, Lester, and John Doe are real people to me. They are my best friends, and I don't want them to get hurt. I am so like very much like distraught if they are distraught, and I, like you said, I'm sure they will continue on in some way. But I think the way that they interact with each other, and I think preserving their friendship and all those things like that, is something that can be impacted. So I'm very much like, what choice keeps them the most, together on a team and in a place where they can rely on each other. I think about it a lot from that perspective. And so I agree. A lot of times I'm voting safe on the safe side too, because I don't want to hurt them. I feel a big responsibility to not hurt them. The reason I feel compelled to take a risk here is because
It's because it has John's name on it and you have a favorite.
I don't have a favorite. I do not have a favorite. It is because I think this means a lot to John. I think this means so much to him. And if I was there with my best friend, my literal soulmate, and, who just told me, I don't fucking know anything about myself. And I've been asking him for months, like, tell me about yourself. Tell me about yourself. He's like, I don't fucking know. And it's like, this could be something. And even if the answer is no, that still gives us a little more information rather than walking away and forcing him to be like, I wonder what that was. I guess I don't know.
That's true, yeah.
Because I think that would be so cruel to do to John, that they're just supposed to keep going and John's supposed to be like, well, I'm just going to assume it wasn't me, and I'm going to convince myself that was the case. And
yeah, I know. I mean, like, I guarantee you that if we leave this thing alone, John will not shut up about it. Either he won't shut up about it, or he'll bring it back up later, like in a weird way or a mean way. Like, it'll come up again that we didn't open this thing. So I can't imagine, like, I am very much in the mindset of we will regret not opening it, but I think we will also regret opening it. I don't think there's a good choice here, if I can say that.
But I think you're right, where you're like, if we keep avoiding it, I do think the environment will eventually get us. Because I think the thing with avoidance is, I'm going to bring up my therapy, which is a great segue into Malevolent. I don't know, Malevolent's so emotionally rich with those things. One of the things I hear a lot about is how avoidance is so great short term. My therapist loves to say this to me, and it's also something that is I do pseudo counseling, so I do very basic level counseling in my day job. And that is something, like, avoidance can be very instant gratification. It can also be very good at building like very quick temporary safety, but long-term avoidance can turn into really big problems because you lose information and you also kind of put yourself in a position where you're isolated and, lacking experience with things. So I agree with you, Queen, that like, if we continue to take no opportunities, something is going to take an opportunity with us because we just have so little info at this point. So that is where I'm like, this is the risk I want to take because it seems the most rewarding.
Yeah, I feel like that is something that I've said from the start. I think you can even go back on Autopsy and hear me say it. If you don't make a choice, something makes a choice for you.
Yeah.
And I kind of don't want that to happen. I kind of want to make a choice. And I think this is maybe one of the tamer choices. Like, I'm trying to think of the past few votes that we've done safer things on. And overall, I think this is not the least risky, but I do think that it's going to break less bad than a previous choice we could have made a scarier outcome for. I don't know. It's hard to tell because it's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
It's a decision for a reason.
Yeah, no, but I agree with you.
Let's get into the final voice message.
Woohoo.
Hi, Autopsy, Rosesofenvy here, and boy howdy am I happy to be back. Full, your impression of me last week had me cackling. It was wonderful, stunning, stellar. I needed that after whatever May was, goodness gracious me. But let's talk about this vote. So I initially, upon ending the chapter, said in the poll minds, curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought it back. Let's crack this thing open, because personally, a curious person, I would like to know what's inside this coffin. However, after watching the poll minds the last couple of days, I have been successfully flipped because many good points have been made. I think maybe we should leave coffins alone. Our first coffin didn't exactly go well for us, and even though it does have John's name on it, we don't know it's our John. And I think that there's a great opportunity for more conversation, as many other people have said, and probably will say it better than me, if we continue past the coffin and don't interact with it, leaving it alone, as it were. So we can possibly get some more Johnalog. I also really, really want to see what's going on with this hostile architecture, because that is so... Did I say that? Architecture. That is a fascinating concept to me, and I want to know what's in there, and I think the best way for us to get in there is to ignore the coffin and keep on moving.
Thank you, Rose. If I'm not careful, I'm going to pick up your voice. Every time I go to talk after a Rose voice message, I almost start saying things in like my best impression of Rose, which is, let me be clear, not good. Nobody wants to hear that. There's a reason I don't do accents, but like it gets stuck in my mouth. I love it. It's my favorite, but oh my God, the day that accidentally happens, I will melt.
Roses just give you permission.
No,
Give
thank
it a
you.
shot.
I'm
Give it a
good.
shot, Queen.
I don't even do accents for when
yeah?
I GM. It's
I see.
humiliating. I absolutely think that this is why this is like the perfect reason, the perfect, I think, representation of why my vote is so hard this week and why I like campaigned for the other side and then like flipped and all this other stuff. Because on one hand, I get it. It's interesting. I also want to know. I think we're going to regret never knowing if we don't open it. I think John's going to regret never knowing. I think it's going to stick in their brains. I think it's going to be a hard time not knowing. On the other hand, it is undoubtedly a trap, but I have a feeling it might be a trap we're being pushed into. Like, I don't know that there's a way out of the trap. I think we're too far in it. I don't think there was ever a way out of it. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Luna?
I actually agree with you very strongly that the thing is, I don't think Harlan would give us Dollmaker and then nothing happens where it's like, oh, you get it, guys, you avoided the Dollmaker. Like, I don't think we're gonna get that. Like, not in this horror podcast. I think it's gonna happen either way. And to me, this is the moment where, if we have to interact with the Dollmaker, if this is the Dollmaker, and I do think that there is a strong chance it could be, because folks have pointed out that the mourners very much have pink wishes in their head. They're giving imagery of dolls and sewing and seamstresses. So I'm not saying that they're wrong, but I think this has the highest emotional reward in terms of us taking a bait or us having this interaction if we have no choice, if we have no escape. Because again, I think this is honoring John's experience. I think it's, being considerate of what he just took the time to share and what he's trying to find out, the honesty he's trying to give Arthur, and the amount that Arthur wants to know about him too. And so as much as folks think like, oh, John will get over it, they're going to go back to their Johnologue, I'm like, I don't think so. I think John's going to be like, so, and Arthur will be like, are you okay? And John's like, yeah, bye. And then it's like, and then Arthur's like, oh, you should. And then it's like, they, like you said, they have like that 10 minutes of like banter, and then it comes up again where they're like, actually, what's in the coffin? And like, they're just very, distraught about it. So I just don't think I think, again, Harlan's a astutely stupendous writer. If we make the safe choice, I don't think we get to walk away scot-free. I think that it's going to come back to get us. I think there's pain in either option, and this to me has the better emotional reward and the more thoughtful. Again, I vote towards what helps their teamwork and their relationship move forward, and I think this helps them, stay in a good, positive place with their relationship where they're looking for answers together, as opposed to being like, fuck you, John, we're going to keep going.
I will say, like, I think my final note on this is going to be, Fish said, like, quoting Arthur, like making up a fake quote, John, you just fucking agreed that we need to leave things alone. What the fuck is wrong with you? You're insane. I want to say that, that would be weird. I think that John giving us all these warnings and being the most learned and cautious and knowledgeable about the dark world, people have been saying, like, we should trust John, we should listen to John, blah, blah, blah.
That's
John,
me.
John,
I feel that.
I
feel that. That's me.
Everybody loves John. Everybody hates Arthur.
I love Arthur.
I feel like there is something to be said for, as much as John may be the one with more experience in the dark world, I think that's going to be a crutch that people are going to lean on more and more. And I think part of what this might show us, if we are going to open the coffin, is that John can know all these things and can have all this experience and can be kind of more or less steady Arthur in the dark world. But he is not immune to the dark world. He is not like, he's also going to be capable of falling into traps and being lured by things. And I think if we do open the coffin, this is an opportunity for us to show the audience, like, hey, I know you think that listening to John might always be the move because he's been here before, but John is fallible. And John, if his name is on it and he's curious enough, he's going to throw his own advice out the window. He's going to convince himself this is a good idea, and he's going to want to open it because anybody can be pulled into their own trap. And so I feel like that would be the teachable lesson in opening the coffin, because it does seem like that's what we're going to do with like a 30-point lead here. I doubt that it'll flip. I don't know. We still have the weekend, but like I said, it's kind of a big lead for Friday night. And I don't know. Right now, my vote still is on opening the coffin because I'm a weenie and I'm scared. I do agree also with people saying that it would suck if we were like unable to explore the rest of this place we've had described to us, and we got like for some reason pulled into the coffin or like chased in a way that made it so that we couldn't explore somehow. But I'm kind of learning that, I mean, we got out of that tower pretty quick and I was really happy about that. I was really scared we were going to stay stuck in that tower like we got stuck in the hag's womb. That was something I was really strongly against because I was like, I cannot stand being trapped one more damn time. I want to see the world that Harlan is building. And I really, for some reason, thought that in season 5 we'd like get to a town square and see people and
So
like
did
do
I.
things, which is insane. Like, why did I think that?
Yeah,
But
same.
for some reason I've been like really hung up on, no, okay, now I'm allowed to walk around and I want to walk around. I want to explore the map. And I don't know. I'm not convinced that this is the vote that would stop us from that. So we'll see.
I agree wholeheartedly
Do you
with
have
you.
any final thoughts, Luna?
I thank you. Yeah, I agree with you completely. And I'm so glad you mentioned John being Lord, because one thing that I was reminded of when I listened to 266 right before this is John was looking at the cow heads and he was like, their eyes, Arthur. And Arthur's like, hey, shake it off. Something's happening to John very subtly.
Yeah.
It almost feels like it's building up the same way his memory loss built up in season 4, where he's getting pulled into lights and eyes. And I think there is something going on with him that's going to burst at a certain point. And I think, like he is very part of this land. Either it's part of him or his time here affects him or something because he's a god, something because, there's a lot of malevolence in him or whatever. And I think investigating things like you said right now, this is a really good bet to make. I think listen, the little dude last week was nothing to me. He had no mouth, he had no ears. I was like, I don't give a fuck who this guy is. He's nobody. But to me, this is very interesting because I just think that there's a lot of emotional reward for them, however this situation goes. And I think what's great, and I have to keep reminding myself, this was only chapter 2. I keep thinking chapter 3 for some reason because it's been so thick and so dense and so long. So my
Yeah.
hope is like, even if they end up in the coffin, even if they get sidetracked, I do think they're going to keep making their journey this way, either way. So to me, this feels like the most interesting bet we can take to reward the two of them narratively and confront whatever horror we have to confront as we do in our beautiful Horror Hope podcast.
Yeah, I think this is a great cap. I think this is the first time I get to say this on Autopsy and like where it's an active decision. I've never really, because I'm on this side of things, I've never really questioned what the public thinks of the votes afterward.
Yeah.
Like, you know how when you're listening to a podcast, not Malevolent because you're spoiled for Malevolent now, but like if you're listening to a podcast, you're like, why would they do that? Why would this character go in there? And so I don't have that perspective anymore. All the decisions we make sense to me. I know why we made them. And so I don't really, outside of the decisions that we don't get a say in, like Arthur's decisions, I don't really have those questions anymore. And I want to say this podcast was in part made because I really wanted to explain myself to people when they were questioning why we did these things and like, why would you do that? What was going through your head when you made such a stupid decision? And I wanted to be like, at the time, like, you don't understand. We had whole conversations about this and like we argued it to death. And so this is a way to like distill that information. And I think this is one of the first votes, if not the first vote, where I can see people being like, why the fuck did they open the coffin? Are you crazy? Why would you touch that? Like, that's so obviously a bad thing to do. And I think this is the first vote where I can be like, no, we talked about that. I swear to God, there's a logic behind it, that we thought really hard about it. And there was a lot of back and forth about the pros and cons. And we know it might lead to a trap. We just were okay with that at the time for some insane reason.
What's so interesting is I've been hearing people argue the opposite in poll chat, where some of them were saying, like the folks that were trying to convince folks not to flip were saying, like, imagine how pissed the voters are going to be at us if we don't open this. Imagine how much the voters are going to be like, what is wrong with the Patreons? Like, well, John Stanley, you know? So I agree. It's so interesting, 'cause most of the time I do not think what the public's going to think about this. But I agree with you. This is a really interesting one that I think having this preserved is like so important and so interesting.
Yeah, I'm really glad that we had as many submissions as we did. Thank you guys, everybody who submitted. I really appreciate it. And Luna, you have been like one of the best hosts on Autopsy ever. You are amazing. Mizra or Nikki or Vol, insert a clapping sound effect here like I have a studio audience, because
Oh my
I'm sure
God.
everyone is clapping for you in their
I
brain.
can't.
You are amazing. Thank you so much.
I'm so honored you let me come on. I love talking about Malevolent. I think you are such a wonderful person. You're preserving a really important piece of art, because Harlan created this art to be community based and to be something that's democratic and meant to be enjoyed chapter by chapter. So I love that you're making this. I love that you're preserving the art as it comes out so that we can remember this process even when it's wrapped up. So you should be proud of yourself. And I'm really grateful you let me be part of it, because this was really fun and I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Earnest but humble response goes here. Thank you guys so much for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, of course, to Harlan Guthrie, the sole creator of Malevolent. Without his labor of love for a story he wants to tell, we wouldn't be here. To join the live recording, submit your own message, get in touch with me, and more, visit linktree/Malevolent Autopsy. The official Invictus Discord server is open to the public and includes a channel just for Malevolent Autopsy fans. We also have our own private, patrons-only channel. Finally, thank you to Mizra, Nikki, Vol Control, and everyone who has helped create and maintain Malevolent Autopsy. These friends are also volunteers who donate time and energy to help put together this love letter to Malevolent.
The horrors persist.
But so do we. I've gotten to say, but so do we.
Oh my God.